I work at a secret hospital that serves patients with unusual conditions that have to stay secret. Last night, I almost died on the job. Dr. Virgil works in a strip mall, between the Four Seasons Lawn Care and a sex shop. Day or night, he'll be there, anytime at all. I've been his nurse, accountant, secretary, and confidant for 5 years and 87 days. No one can succeed like Dr. Virgil, because he does what no one else can. Last night, he had just injected a healthy dose of clonazepam, because no one had come into the office for hours. Dr. Virgil swears that he can work just as well under a clone fog, and we've never had a patient who survived to contradict him. I was leaning as far back as the broken chair would allow before snapping, staring at the halogen desk lamp and trying not to doze, about to ask if I could go home early. Suddenly, there came a tapping. It was unnatural. Humans knock in a metered rhythm, because we like the illusion of control. Every tap I heard was unnaturally spaced, as though the knocker wanted to mimic the dissonance of a primes radical. I was glad that Dr. Virgil was the one to approach the door. What has one voice, but goes on 4 legs in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 3 in the evening? The voice on the other side sounded like a man who was trying to sound like a man who wasn't nervous. The most venomous animal on earth. Dr. Virgil looked at me through his round spectacles. Without a word, I stood. He'd gotten the password right, but something sounded off. That's how I knew the patient was legit. Dr. Virgil opened the door. A man in his mid-20s walked in, pale, looking too small for his clothes. The doctor closed the door behind him and led the way to the table that served as our examination chair, surgical platform, and dinner table. It sat beneath the best light. We try to look closed at night, so it was mostly dark in the room. "What did you do to yourself, or what did someone do to you?" asked Dr. Virgil, gently pushing the patient onto the table. He shook his head, pulling his dark hoodie tighter. I don't know. It's just my hand." The young man lifted his arm and my spine melted like butter with ants in it. Each finger writhed like an independent worm, far too fast and dexterous for any human to control. What little adherence to natural knuckle pronation remained just made the sight more horrifying. Dr. Virgil affixed the diminutive headlamp before the hand-washing ritual. "Do you know what caused it?" he snapped as I wheeled in the cart of surgical tools. The man squeaked as he stared at my scalpels. "I don't know what's going on. Someone I trust told me you're the only person who can help." "That person is correct, but it doesn't mean you can trust them." He froze. "You need to tell me what happened." "It's really nothing," he moaned as 2 of his fingers dueled with one another. "I'm not your mother, I'm not the police, and I'm not your friend. Nothing you can tell me will elicit judgment on my part. Now, what were you doing when this started?" "I was having, the sex." "You're a fucking idiot." The man's face fell. "I don't want to know your name, so I will call you Mendax." "What were you fucking when this happened?" Mendax's eyes bulged. "What do you mean?" Dr. Virgil was annoyed. "When you put your penis into the hole, what was that hole attached to?" She was a girl who... Was this your first time meeting her?" "Yeah, I met her at a bar." "Shitty dive bar?" Dr. Virgil folded his arms. "She was way out of your league?" Mendax squirmed. "I mean, she was pretty hot, Dr. Virgil yanked the man's wrist and pulled back the dark sleeve of his hoodie. Mendax's forearm was Pepto-Bismol pink. I groaned and covered my face with my hand. "It wasn't a human being that fucked you," the doctor explained in a clinical tone. "Of course it was," Mendax protested as 3 of his fingers stood on the table and danced the can-can. "The sex was good sex." "I suggest you refine your definition of good to exclude all trips to hospitals of the transmundane," Dr. Virgil countered as he snapped on latex gloves. "I hope you don't have any allergies," because there's no time to discuss them. Nurse? I had already snuck up behind Mendax, and now gently wrapped my arms around him. You're going to need to lie down, I explained in the most soothing tone the situation would allow. Hang on, he protested as Dr. Virgil grabbed his arm. You haven't even explained what OHSHIT. The hand, clearly acting independent of Mendax's control or even knowledge, yanked away from Dr. Virgil's grasp and slammed against the tray. Fear shot through my body as the situation spiraled. I compartmentalized. The fear still existed, raw and electric, but I placed it in a corner of my mind where it wouldn't affect my work. The rogue, pink hand grabbed a scalpel and stabbed at Dr. Virgil. Mendax tried to jump off the table, but I was too quick and had him pinned down before he realized it was too late. The wild hand struck in all directions. It sliced through my scrubs, but spared my skin. What the hell is going on? Mendax screamed. What is that thing? The physical manifestation of unfortunate erection-based decisions, Dr. Virgil grunted as he dodged another swipe. Nurse? I've secured the patient. He nodded. And then he moved his fingers, light and quick, around the combative hand. He snapped a bone saw from the tray with surgical precision as I grabbed the pink elbow. Wait, what the hell? Get that saw away from my arm, you fucking monster. Way too early for you to cast judgment about fucking monsters, my friend. Fortunately for you, this is no longer your arm, so it won't hurt as much as a fair consequence would demand. Now hold still. Mendax was paralyzed by fear and the strength of two people holding him down. He stared, transfixed, as the good doctor slid the bone saw's teeth into his pink flesh while his fingers danced. Dr. Virgil parted the epidermis like a clean slice through pork dumplings. Mendax should have bled, but the arm was far from human at this point. The decomposition hissed with a near-flatulent sound as the saw made its way down, grating harshly as steel met bone. The inside of an arm shouldn't glow, but such are the consequences of convincing ourselves that it seemed like a good idea at the time. Dr. Virgil's saw scraped against the table, and the pink arm shot free. Mendax screamed as the fingers raced across the floor, flopping the forearm behind. Catch it! Dr. Virgil yelled, but I was well ahead of him. I ran after the hand, diving painfully across the concrete floor in a vain attempt to catch it before it disappeared into darkness. I didn't move. I needed to listen for where it went. We had to keep it from escaping. Even if it meant burning the strip mall to the ground with us still inside, the hand thing needed to be destroyed. I held still and listened harder. That's when it squeezed my neck, the fingers finally working in unison with the force of a Toyota Corolla crushing my trachea, acute pain quickly succumbing to lightheaded sleepiness. Scrick. I gasped as molten air flooded my lungs. Dr. Virgil stood over me, one hand clutching the pink monster while the other filled it with the syringe containing what remained of his clonazepam. The fingers sputtered like the final throes of Jabba's wiggly tail before falling limp. Dr. Virgil gazed at me through his clone fog, and we saw one another. We didn't need to speak. Hey man, can I get my arm back? We turned to gaze at the three-limbed Mendax. What part of the preceding incidents causes you to believe that is a good idea? Asked the doctor. Can you, squeeze the evil out of it first? The three of us stared at the limp piece of pink meat. No. An awkward silence hung in the air. Well, Mendax finally sputtered, can my arm grow back? Dr. Virgil blinked. Is there literally one single piece of information you've ever encountered to suggest that idea might be in any way plausible? We all looked at Mendax's truncated arm. It wasn't bleeding, and he didn't seem to be in any physical pain. Apply ice to the wound at 20-minute intervals, and take up to 600 milligrams of ibuprofen as needed for pain and swelling, Dr. Virgil instructed. Nurse, I am going to prepare for disposal. Please reach out to all appropriate contacts that need to be aware of the presence of a Grixley beef. What? Yes, doctor, I answered, ignoring Mendax's interruption. The safety of the target population will be inversely related to their sex drive, Dr. Virgil explained while dumping the arm into a plastic bag. I'll prepare for an influx of autopsies, I answered in response to his comment. Hang on, Mendax cut in again. So, what now? For me? The doctor and I stared at him for a few quiet seconds. You get to live at least one day longer than your decision-making abilities should have allowed, I explained. No one is ever as grateful for that fact as they should be. I turned away to make some phone calls, while Dr. Virgil busied himself with the meat sack. You can go now, Mendax, I added before diverting my conversation to the phone. Hi, it's Beatrice. Dr. Virgil, and I wanted to let you know that it looks like this is going to be a long night.